Real conversations with real people that have chosen a life of positive impact in business and community. This is Leave It Better with Brandon Trammell. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I have the pleasure today to have a friend of mine sitting next to me, Carolyn Pistone, who is the founder of Clear Blue Commercial. And we'll dive into what that's all about. But welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be on your show.
Well, thanks for coming and joining me. We have really fun conversations offline. And I thought, well, we may as well get it on film.
Nice. Nice.
So I'm really excited about this conversation because, as you know, the show is really about kind of sharing the stories of social entrepreneurs, folks who are interested in doing good through their business, while doing well in business, doing good in the world. And, I don't know a whole lot of people that operate in real estate the way that you do, with the focuses that you have. So let's, we'll get to that in a little bit. But what I'm really interested in having you share is how you came to a place of wanting to, or really focusing in on doing good in the world for the environment or other people through your business.
Well, to quote Harvey Fierstein, I just want to be loved. Is that so wrong?
It's not. It's not.
And so I think that the whole concept of doing good in the world must be in my DNA. It's all since I can remember my conscious memory. I want the world to be a better place because I was here. And I've struggled my whole life with really wanting that to be the case, and also really looking at, is this just a big ego trip? It really, when you look at how big the world is and how there's 8 billion of us on the planet right now. And
who am I to think I can make it a better place?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so when I look at, and I like to say, if you lose enough jobs, you get a great resume, and mine is particularly impressive. And sometimes you don't get to see till you're looking back at it that my life's work has always been the same, regardless of what it said on my business card.
Yeah.
And being able to be a catalyst for positive change is what lights me up, which drives me in every position. It was valued in some positions more than others.
Sure. Yes.
I only did this for 5 days, but I gutted fish in a canning factory.
Okay.
And I would say that's probably the least place where I felt I was making a difference. And I couldn't survive in that job, unfortunately, although it did shift my perspective to where nothing I eat or buy or put on my body has not been touched by human hands and has not been affected by somebody else's labor. So even though I get this great opportunity to have purpose in my life and do what I want to do, that doesn't mean that everybody gets the same level of satisfaction from what they do as I do.
True.
And, there are people that pick our food and grow our food and build our homes and build our roadways and all these types of things that we have the luxury of not having to think about. And so I try to think about that in everything I do, in every purchase I make. And I mean, we live in a capitalist society, so we're voting with our dollars. So I'm really looking towards, okay, let me put my dollars towards people that are really in the way that I can make it most valuable.
Yeah.
There was a moment about the planet for me that really made me focus and hone in on that. And I had been working in commercial real estate for a while, and I was working at a building in downtown San Francisco, 101 California. And I had a beautiful window office, and I was looking out over the Bay Bridge, and I was there the morning that an oil tanker, the Casco Busan, hit the Bay Bridge. And then it was a very foggy morning, and as the fog lifted, I saw the vessel itself kind of leaning over to its side and spewing its contents. And I grew up in a shipyard, basically. So I don't know much about ships, but I knew there was something definitely wrong with that one.
That doesn't seem right.
Yeah, and it was in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And previous to that, I had watched in awe and wonder all of the commerce and traffic that comes through that both to the port of San Francisco and the port of Oakland.
Yeah.
And that vessel stayed there for almost a week.
Wow.
And I realized that, if I was bringing home my groceries, if I dropped a bottle of olive oil on my front porch, I would block off the entrance.
Right.
I would clean it up, and then I would let people come in and out.
Sure.
And there was no mechanism for that, for that entrance to the Golden Gate Bridge. There wasn't anything like that, even though I watched all those ships come in and out, dragging that oil slick back out and also up into the Delta and other areas of our ecosystem.
Yeah.
And I realized that as humans, we have placed ourselves above the earth. We've placed ourselves above animals and plants and all these other things. But now we have placed commerce above humanity.
Yeah.
And above all else. Yeah. And that's when I really started to hone in on, we've got to do something for this planet. I don't know if you've been conscious this summer, but everything's either on fire or flooding or volcanoes
or blowing away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you heard, but there was this pandemic.
Oh no, tell me.
And
what happened?
I remember being in grade school when we were and I went to grade school here in California.
Yeah.
And we first started talking about ecology and pollution, and so I thought I was pretty conscious. I've recycled my whole life.
Right. I mean,
but everything that the climate scientists have been saying for the last 50 years is all happening exactly as they said it would. And I know a lot of us are breathing a sigh of relief that we don't have to be wearing masks right now and we can go out in public. And that was just this pandemic. There's going to be more.
Yeah.
And that, what happened in Maui, that's just what happened last week.
Right.
There's going to be more, and we're planning our lives and our businesses as though, oh, thank God we never have to think about that again. That was really bad, but let's get back to normal
it's
now.
in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I really started looking at, how do I use my business as a force for good? How do I really make the most positive impact that I can in the world? Yeah. And when we launched this business, and we're going to be celebrating 10 years next June, we set out to become a certified green business and to be a B Corp.
Yeah.
And the background of all B Corps is using your business as a force for good.
Yeah, it is the backbone.
And so it's been really nice, especially as we prepare for our 10-year anniversary, to really look back. And you can see I'm hesitating to say this out loud. I want to celebrate our wins.
Yeah.
And there have been some amazing wins. But it's hard for me to even say that these were wins, because there's so much more work to be done that we all need to be doing, which is why I'm grateful for this microphone.
Well, I think that's that's an important thing, I think, for us to point out, is that using your business as a force for good in the world, whether that's for, in support of a social cause or an environmental cause, is not a destination.
Yeah.
It is not something where you check the box because you contributed to X, or you have a program for Y, or, you did a training on, insert social initiative here, right? It's very much around the journey is the important thing, because as social entrepreneurs, we are not here to check a box. We're here to do the work and to be in support of others who are doing the work that we believe is necessary for us to progress to a better place, a better way of living in harmony, in interdependence with each other and natural systems, all of these kinds of things. So I really appreciate that point, because I think it's something that, the listeners can come to understand, that it's not about choosing a destination, getting there, and then, the battle's over. It really is something where we're constantly evolving. Our initiatives, or what we're focused on, or the problems that need us, are also constantly evolving. And so we have to do that as well.
One of the things about, even though I just said we shouldn't celebrate our wins,
we should.
We should definitely celebrate one another. One of the things, early on, we had, on our staff, we had a man who, he's still with us, but at the time he was a vegan, kind of fallen off the vegan wagon. But, and I really respected him for it and wanted to learn a lot about it. But I also watched as people would point out all kinds of things that he was doing that weren't
right.
And you're wearing a leather belt and leather shoes, and you probably wear silk and use honey and blah 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 blah.
Sure. Yeah.
And I thought, I see that frequently in the green space, in the sustainable space, and all of these sorts of things, where we're really quick to poke holes in how imperfect our work is, and how imperfect we are in terms of doing that. I'm a certified green business, and I care deeply about the planet.
Yeah.
But I can't take a 5-minute shower to save my life. I mean, there's plenty of things that I do, and sometimes I need a plastic bag to pick up dog poop.
Right.
And
this is another really important thing, because I think a lot of folks that may be sort of like I was, 5-7 years ago, really looking into there's got to be a better way for me to operate in my business, and a way for me to really intertwine doing good in the world through the work that I'm doing. And sitting there and going, oh my God, it's such a high standard. I could never avoid using all plastics. I could never, avoid saying something that I hadn't fully thought through before I said it, and it came out of my mouth, and I wanted to put that right back in. Or, the ideal is never reality. It's just an ideal. It's something to shoot for, right? It's something to say, let's make progress towards a better way of thinking, living, doing, right? Generating profit, or, making the clothes, or mining for the metals, or, whatever the thing might be. And so I think it's you bring something up that I really appreciate, is celebrate what we're doing right, understand what we could do better, and take actionable steps to get closer to that.
Well, and also, none of us, you said earlier, there's 8 billion of us. None of us are doing this alone.
No.
And one of the hardest things for me in trying to be a champion for our planet and for social justice is it's always very it feels embarrassing to be saying, me, you should all listen to me. And to be able to do what I do as an example, and then shine a spotlight on the other people, as you are doing this beautiful day. Thank you. That's how we're going to bring each other all up together. That
100%.
That I wrote a line recently in a talk that I've started giving, and it's about saving the world. And when I first put my speaker sheet together, and I had the term saving the world in there like 3 times, and a certain person who's in my office right now, who will remain nameless, looked at it and said, well, that's kind of a lot, really. Why would you save? And I thought, well, first of all, it needs to happen.
Yeah.
And it's not going to happen if I don't say it, and everybody else who can do it says it too.
Right.
But what I really think is, don't listen to anybody who tells you you can't save the world. You can't. You just can't do it alone.
Right.
And that's why we all have to be coming together and lifting each other up and celebrating what each other is doing. I can't do everything that's on the list that needs to be done, but I can do some of it, and I can make darn sure that I'm supporting the people who are doing the rest.
I could not agree more. I mean, that, as you pointed out, right, is the whole reason that I started this show. Because in my tenure on the board at Conscious Capitalism, Bay Area, I realized there's not enough. For example, there's not enough. There's not a place where people can really go and consume information in a mass way to get ideas and flesh out their own ideas and chop through those, and like, what could I be doing? And how did they do that? And what steps can I even just take pieces of to take back to the office on Monday and operationalize and do something a little bit better? And that was why I started the show. It was like, I want people to have a place that are thinking to themselves, there's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be a way to do this that harms less people or causes no harm or destruction or whatever the case might be. So I really wanted to create a place where they could just stop in, casually listen to conversations with, between myself and other social entrepreneurs who are taking steps through their business to do something great and improve a process or improve a system, which is really where massive change can happen, right? At the systems level. But not all of us have the power to change systems. And so if we can hear from those folks who do have that power or that network and be in support of them through voting with our dollars, as you point out, right? Then we can all be a part of each other's wins, right? And as you, I think, very aptly said, is, we get to rise together. And
I had an interesting, I was on another podcast. I'm sorry.
You're a little podcast star, you. Look at you go.
So I'm cheating on you with another podcast host.
I'll allow it. I'll allow it.
I have been asked in the past, because my business is in commercial real estate.
Yeah.
I get asked to speak about commercial real estate.
I imagine a fair amount.
Definitely. And I think it's the least interesting part of what I do, but because to me, it's just a tool for greater things.
Yeah.
It's also an opportunity for me to not preach to the choir.
Fair.
Because I don't know if you know, but we had a president recently that was in the same business that I'm in. And so when he I recognized him the minute he stepped up to the microphone.
You're like, hey, I've seen him at conferences. That guy.
I know that guy. I know that guy, and he was many of the guys in this business. So somebody was asking me about the current real estate office market, particularly in San Francisco. And they were very concerned because there's so much vacancy and, these big landlords, tenants may be defaulting and this sort of thing. And they said, well, what do we do? What are these landlords going to do? What are the banks going to do?
Right.
And my feeling is the landlords and the banks are going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
What strikes me as inherently terrible is you have these giant, beautiful office buildings with so much vacancy. But in order to get into them, you have to pass by 5 people that are sleeping on the sidewalk. And I am not suggesting an actual solution.
Yeah.
What I'm suggesting is that we need to step back and look at the whole system and why we're doing this. Because, and I know I've said this to you before privately, and I've said it a lot publicly. Money's not even a real thing.
Unless we agree that it is. It's an agreement. It's a social contract.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's a human construct.
Yes.
That we have made more important than other humans that
to many.
Have to sleep on the street.
Right.
I mean,
there are solutions before us.
Yeah.
Willingness, political will, social will. Those are things that, are sort of trailing behind, I think, the social interest in solving the problems is being trailed pretty distantly by political will.
There was during the Great Recession, during that whole system, and we went to, I forget, it was maybe Black Monday. Yeah, I can't remember what day of the week it was, but there was a large options trader out of the East Coast who was he was a billionaire, and his net worth dropped by 90% that day, and he killed himself. And he had, now granted, he still had 10% of his wealth, which was still millions and millions of dollars, and homes and assets and cars and a family and children.
Right.
But to him, all of a sudden, his life was not worth living. Now, I lived through that same time. I lost my house when everybody else lost their house and the whole mortgage thing. And I have to say, people don't talk about this much because there's so much shame attached to it. But the truth is, this is something that was done to us, not something that's the result of our own moral failing.
Right.
And many of us who are looking at retirement now are never going to recover.
Right.
And during that time when we were struggling so hard, and I faced a couple of years of unemployment before I was able to get back on my feet. And I was watching a TV movie with my then elementary school age daughter, and it was about Bernie Madoff. And when we got to the point where he had been arrested, and then they were showing something, and he had one of his sons that had been in business with him also killed himself. And my daughter was enraged. I had to pause the whole thing, and she was like, he had kids, blah, blah, blah. She had no idea at the time that we were facing bankruptcy and foreclosure and all these other things.
Right.
And I never once considered suicide. I was just trying to consider, how can we do what we do?
Right.
And it was that moment of out of the mouths of babes.
Yeah.
Here we have people supposedly at the top that have a completely skewed idea of what the value of a human life is, including their own.
Right.
That they have placed what are really numbers on a spreadsheet. That's become their God. That's become what they worship and how they measure themselves as a human being.
Yeah.
And I have always been very uncomfortable at being defined by a dollar figure. And I certainly would never measure myself in that way. And I have been a millionaire, and I have been bankrupt, and I have, done everything in between. And I was briefly homeless. I lived in my car for a while. And interestingly, I know I'm digressing all over the place.
I love digression. It's one of my favorite things.
But when I go back to this time, I had been very sick, and I had been in a marriage where clearly marriage was not the right relationship for us. This person is still very much in my life, but at that time, we split up. I had no job. I had just had a major catastrophic illness. I had just learned to walk and feed myself and dress myself again. And all of a sudden I'm just, and I never slept on the street. So I don't want to, say that because I cannot imagine how hard that would have been to recover from. So I was couch surfing basically.
Yeah.
And I told a friend of mine that I reconnected with after almost 30 years. And we were talking about that period in my life. And she just looked at me and she goes, Carolyn, why didn't you call me? And it had never occurred to me until that moment that I could call anybody.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, you're right.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
You're
don't know
right.
why I didn't call you.
I didn't call anybody because we're all supposed to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great if you have boots.
Yeah. It's also like just by the very laws of physics, fully impossible to pull yourself up by bootstraps. It's not a real thing.
Yeah. And it's like when people say a rising tide raises all boats.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Do you have a boat?
If you have a boat. Yeah. It's only if you have a boat.
Yeah. Most of us are chained to the seafloor.
Yeah. I think, and this is something that I'm actually addressing in the book that I'm writing, is where we place the value of $1 in a seat of supremacy over the value of life. Mm-hmm. Is a really toxic and dangerous place. And it's a culture that has been fostered and, promulgated and just really held out to be the way of living for successful people. That is, we're seeing the effects of that play out, right? All over the world by actors that are born here. And it puts a lot of people that are very valuable contributors to society, to their family, to, their circle of friends and loved ones in a really bad position. Mm-hmm. Because I can count more stories than I have fingers on one hand of folks who have been financially extremely successful beyond the measure of what most people can achieve in their life. And nonetheless, I found themselves, lying on a couch in front of a coffee table with a loaded weapon, contemplating ending that. And nobody should ever have to be at that point because of money.
Exactly.
And frankly, you can find yourself in that position very easily if you're not careful and, you're not connected to the folks that are really here in support of you. Mm-hmm. And that's this idea of rugged individualism where, we can do it on our own, and we should. It's not healthy. It's not real. There is no such thing as self-made. It is a complete farce.
Yes.
Nobody ever has made everything all on their own without any teachers or mentors or friends or confidants
or parents.
Okay. None of us do this alone. We're not a species that is designed to do things alone. If we look back through the course of history, that's illustrated for us in many, many ways. I don't want to digress too far because I want you to share what you do at Clear Boot and how you do it that way and why the B Corp metrics have been an important tool for you to find your course, chart your course, and remain on it.
Well, Pure Blue Commercial is we are a certified green business, a certified woman-owned business, a certified small business, and a B Corp. Mm-hmm. We set out to be all of those things from the day we said, hey, let's start a business.
Yeah.
And we do primarily large-scale property and facility management for big corporations and government entities. Mm-hmm. So we do work for the city of Novato. We do work as a subcontractor for the state of California. We're in the process of maybe doing some federal work as well.
Cool.
And so that's how we do what we do. And in that's the basics of what we do.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I have found that there are a lot of things that we do that are green and that are going to help everybody and that are going to help our employees and our clients and our communities and all those things. When I am selling my services, I find I have to keep that on the back burner. Mm. And it's really a question of, can I show value add, or can I be the lowest bidder? Mm. And usually it's a combination of those things.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a lot more impact in not preaching to the choir.
Sure.
And even, and all of my clients are lovely people who love the earth and, would never do anything to knowingly to damage anybody or the planet.
Right.
But helping it is not part of their core business. And so I've had people that have hired us that have, once we've signed the contract and we get started, the next thing they say is, but we don't want any of that green stuff. And because
interesting statement.
Yeah. We don't want any of that. Okay.
You did hire us. I don't know.
And bring my giant, we'll do some strip mining for you. I don't know.
Right.
Number one, because they're convinced that green is more expensive, which, first of all, is not the case. And I've built my whole business around proving that.
Right.
But also, green is more expensive compared to what?
Right.
Compared to creating a planet that's not fit to sustain life.
Seems like a high price.
Yeah. Compared to massive sea level rise and pandemics and fires.
Displaced populations.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, seems like a pretty good bargain to me. But also, I've been able to find ways. The cool thing about property management, and this is a little bit granular, but you have control over the budget. That's what, property management is basically, you make a budget, you collect the rents, you pay the bills, you maintain the property.
Right.
But within that, there's a ton of stuff that can be.
Sure.
And the example I like to give is we managed a large property, one of the largest buildings right here in this town. Mm-hmm. And it had been vacant, and it was owned by a large real estate investment trust out of the East Coast. Mm-hmm. And it had been vacant for a long time, so it was really, kind of a rock in their shoe. Mm-hmm. And I decided I wanted to do a turf conversion. This was during the drought. I'm like, we're going to get rid of this lawn. We're going to put in, drip system and drought tolerant plants and mulch, and we're going to do this thing.
Right.
So I got a bid from the landscaping company. And it was going to cost $250,000. It was going to take 6 weeks, and it would pay for itself. I did the math. It would pay for itself in water savings in 32 years. And I knew that this was a non-starter.
That's not going to pencil out for them.
Yeah, it's not going to pencil out at all. No matter how good it is for the planet.
Sure.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
So I I went back to the landscape company. I reached out to the water agency. I reached out to the city of Petaluma. And I reached out to several different entities. When I went back to the landscape company, I said, all of this is time and material. Mm-hmm. I said, what if I can get the labor for free? And what if I can get the materials for free? Mm. How much would you charge me to just do the
Right.
Basically rip out those sprinklers and get us ready and, turn the lawn so it's easier for it. And they came back and they said, we'll do it for $70,000. $70,000 was $10,000 less than the landscape budget was for that year. Right. And so we reached out, we did it all in one day. We created a big community event out of it. We had 3 different bands, and Clover, who's here, they donated yogurt and all kinds of goodies. And we got other people that donated snacks. We had people from the massage school come and set up their chair massages so that we could have massages. We reached out to the high schools because everybody's got a community service requirement in order to graduate. And we're like, we'll give you some hours. And so we got 150 volunteers. Wow. We did it all in 6 hours instead of 6 weeks. We created something that is still saving to this date. We did this in 2015. It's saving 1.6 million gallons of water a year. Wow. Just in this community. Wow. And now, I understandably, as I started submitting the invoices and I got some questions out of the East Coast who were like, why are there massage therapists on our landscaping budget? And who is the Bad Apple String Band? Now, as it happens, both my husband and I come from an entertainment background.
Indeed.
And we made a video and we sent them the video that it didn't just detail what we had done. It detailed how we did it and the savings and this sort of thing. Yeah. And they got it right away. They were really excited. They were so excited that they showed it at their shareholders meeting that year.
Wow.
And I realized that what we did by doing this little thing in this little town, we created something that not only brought the community together and gave everybody a stake, because it's all of our water.
Yeah.
We all need it.
Yep.
And had a wonderful day, and people got their community service credits.
Sure.
But we also created something that investors from all over the world could feel good about what they were doing with their money.
Right.
And that's a small part of how we've done it. And please go to my website, clearbluecommercial.com. And you can see this video. We also did a video recently where we put a 100,000 square foot solar array on the buildings that we manage as a subcontractor for the state of California. And we did it with no out of pocket from our client or the state or the landlord.
Wow.
Or our company. We just provided cleaner, cheaper energy right away and significant saving.
Yeah.
So if you're a taxpayer in the state of California, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. That story that you just shared is so multifaceted in the value proposition. The students who have a requirement to do, 10 or 12 hours of community service. Yeah, they have a requirement, but what those students likely got out of being a part of that event is a deeper connection to their community. The volunteers beyond them, I don't know if they were all high school students.
No.
But those folks had an opportunity to contribute to their community, to contribute to taking a giant water guzzler and turning it into something far more sustainable. Mm-hmm. And the bands got to come out and entertain people and the people that were there. I mean, the sense of community that is created in an endeavor like that is really hard to quantify how important that is or how valuable that is beyond water savings and energy savings and those things, which are important as well.
We had some press that was there that day, and one of our state assembly members came and gave us a proclamation and that sort of thing. Well, the reporter that was there interviewed me on that day. You know, I'm like, I've got a shovel and I'm trying to talk. But his first question is, he said, well, you know, the owners of this building have over $1 billion in assets around the, so why are we doing this for them? And I was like, well, what an interesting question. Why shouldn't we? First of all, why shouldn't we? Is this, are you saying that because it's benefiting somebody who's already got plenty, that it's not worth doing? I'm like, we're doing that. I didn't round all these people up with a gun and tell them they had to come here today.
Right.
These are volunteers who see the value in doing something like this in their community. It's interesting to me that just like we were saying with people sleeping on the sidewalk outside of the big, you know, empty office buildings, it's we're looking at this tiny slice of what this means, and it always comes back to money. And the truth is, none of it really comes back to money.
Right.
It doesn't have anything to do with money.
Yeah.
And so I never make any decisions based on dollars.
Right.
And I never define myself based on dollars.
Right.
I'm like, well, because really, if money's not even a real thing, you can always get more of it.
I mean, just look at the Federal Reserve and our Treasury, because they're just kind of printing it for us. Yeah.
So,
that is a really interesting question. It's not an interesting question in itself. What's interesting is that they chose to ask the question from that position of like, why are you helping this $1 billion fund to save money when they have way more than they need and they should be contributing more? And I don't dispute that, right? I think it would be fantastic if they contributed more, but relying or sitting in wait for others who have plenty to do more is sort of like letting your tomatoes die on the vine. Well, nobody got to enjoy that fruit. So I think, yes, there are a lot of people who could be doing a lot more. And I'm not going to sit around and wait for them to do more for me to do more, because nobody benefits from that. And it's certainly not me. I think what I really appreciate about your business, and I think where I have found the most satisfaction in mine and being in community with others like us, is that the contribution is what makes it all so meaningful for me.
Yes.
What I'm contributing to even a small effort means so much to me. And I gain such a deep sense of satisfaction out of contributing to something beyond myself, that I want everybody to experience that. I think everybody has experienced that, at least in small degrees, if not to a much larger degree, when you've done something that wasn't about you, it was about somebody else or something else, and contributing to a better outcome for that person or that place or that thing. We've all had those moments where we did that and felt that sense of like, wow, that felt really good. I feel really good. And whether they can connect it to doing that thing or not is, up to them. But I know I have that opportunity on a daily basis as I support clients in crafting ways to be able to do more good in the world for their family, for their community, for an organization that they support. Because when I get off of a call with somebody who says to me, Brandon, I don't know how I can thank you.
Oh.
That feeling goes way beyond dollars and cents.
Mm-hmm.
It is a social ledger, right?
Exactly.
That means so much more.
Well, who's paying you to do this podcast?
Nobody.
Same with me. I mean, and
but if you want to sponsor this podcast, please DM us. We are taking applications for sponsors currently.
But for instance, both the turf conversion that I mentioned to you and the solar, nobody asked us to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody paid us to do that.
Yeah.
We figured out how in the course of our work and
mm-hmm.
in the course of what we're already doing, how can we have the most impact? And that's why we do it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that going out and speaking about this kind of thing is going to hopefully make the world a better place.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you are doing. And, God bless you for giving me this microphone. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's what I really hope is that listeners can grab onto, at very least, one thing, one seed, one grain that sort of lights the fuse for them of, wow, she said something, he said something, they said something that I can't seem to get out of my brain. And I'm like, mm-hmm. and they take that thing and it's this a hopeful sort of snowball effect where things grow, that seed starts to germinate, and they then have something else come into their attention, their awareness that they pick up and they do, and they go there and they support that group or they operationalize something so that they can begin to have these moments where they feel the sense that you and I feel oftentimes in the work that we do. And I think that's what I love the most about the podcast platform mm-hmm. is that, gang, I pay to do this.
Yeah.
I'm paying them.
Yeah.
They're not paying me. I do it because I think we need more free and open voices around things that are important in somewhat of a long form format where it's not soundbite, people vying for sound bites. It's just people having real genuine conversation around things that are meaningful to them or important to them. And that's different for everybody. And so I love it when we get the opportunity to kind of dig in on things that inspire us. Because, this is how I don't know if I've talked about it on the show before or not, but how I came up with the logo that we use for Purpose Financial is I stole it. I borrowed it from the concept of Ikigai, right? Which, are you familiar with what that is? So a Japanese concept, right? Which literally translated means reason for being, right? Oh. What we call purpose. Mm-hmm. And it's 4 overlapping circles, the center of which is our reason for being. These 4 circles are what we're really good at, what we enjoy doing, what the world needs, and what we can make money doing. And at the center of those 4 is a reason for being, our purpose. And I found that overlap really boils down to me supporting people in pulling out of a tailspin around their finances mm-hmm. and assigning their value as a human being to the money that is in their bank account or that they're able to generate. And giving them the ability through the tools to educate themselves, make sound decisions, and to detach from that prescription, right? And you have found a bit of yours in doing what you do through, an industry that, like mine, is very rarely interested in things the way that you are.
It's been an interesting transition from, and of course, I almost never question my own motivations. I know that I only have the best intent in everything I do.
Yeah.
But to take that in my work and then turn that into who I am as an employer has some challenges to it.
It certainly does.
And one of the things that I have discovered, because I feel really, really strongly, and we treat our people really well, and we're really, not that there are, but it's their own person, but
those who work for you,
the people on our team, we want to be very generous, and certainly, even though the average is, the people at the top versus entry level tend to make 400 times more than their entry level person, and that's not the case at all in our company. But what I realize is it's absolutely impossible to pay people what they're worth, because there is not enough money in the world to adequately honor the value of a human being.
Right.
You can only pay people what the task is worth. And I don't like to muddy up too much, because it's too much about money for me. But what it has done for me is I'll do what I can with the money for people.
Right.
But I'm also going to do what I can to allow everybody to bring their best selves to work and have their values as expressed in their work and on the team as possible. So we do a lot of that kind of work to create employee satisfaction. And to create a team that can make something better than any of us could have made on our own.
Which is always the case. If we're willing to set ego aside, we always make something better together than we could on our own. That's just how that works. I would love in a parting thought, I would love for you to offer a tip or a bit of advice for anyone who's listening that is considering, how can I start this journey towards doing business in a more beneficial way? What advice would you give them?
There's a couple of things. Being a B Corp, anybody can go on the B Corp website, and there's a thing called a B Impact Survey. And it's the precursor to getting certified. And I'm not saying everybody needs to be certified. Sure. It is a cumbersome and imperfect process, as they will all happily admit.
As most processes are,
But it was so in-depth in terms of, what are you doing for social justice? What are you doing for the planet? What are you doing for what businesses are you supporting? Who are your vendors? Who are your suppliers? Who are your clients? And what are they doing? And it's a nice little thing that, and it's free, just download it, do it for yourself or do it for your own company. And that's going to give you, first of all, it's going to give you a ton of kudos, because you're going to realize how much you're already doing. You just haven't ever quantified it before or written it down. Or a lot of becoming a B Corp for us was just documenting things we were doing anyway. But it also gives you the understanding of how interconnected all these things are, and how every decision that we make in our daily lives impacts everything around us.
Great advice. I love that tip. I know for me, when I went through the B Impact assessment survey, whatever, the most valuable thing for me was a heightened awareness around, what does that even mean? What does it mean for me to have a positive impact? Or what does it mean for me to, be doing good through my business? Right. So for me, it was a really it highlighted a lot of things, like you said, that I was already doing or already thinking about in those certain ways. And, I don't have a whole bunch of employees or anything. So there are some metrics of it that just didn't really apply. But it is a fantastic way for you to kind of sink your teeth into, like, what does that mean to be, a stakeholder capitalist, right? Yeah. A company that is oriented around all of its stakeholders and making business choices in that way to benefit as many of them, if not all of them, as possible.
There's a movie that we just watched the other night because it just came on Netflix.
Yeah.
And it's called Bank of Dave.
Mm.
And it's based on a true story of this guy in his community. And he sold minivans. And he started loaning money to people in his area. And originally he was just, he was just doing it as a favor to people.
Right.
But then he realized, wait a minute, we could be a bank. And then they discovered that there have been no new banks in the UK in 150 years.
Wow.
There hadn't even been any new bank applications in 150 years. So it was lovely to see, and you would love. I'm
gonna have to check. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out.
But afterwards, I was like, my husband and I were sitting on the couch. We're like, we should do that. We should totally do that. That is a great, great idea.
Yeah.
And all of the profits went back to local charities.
Love it.
They, the first big loan that they gave out was to build a free clinic.
Wow.
In their area. I mean, it was just awesome.
All right, Bank of Dave.
Bank of Dave.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
The other thing you have to see is Rainn Wilson on MSNBC has a series called The Geography of Bliss. And I think it's only 6 episodes. He goes 6 different places around the world.
Right.
And really looks at what is this concept of happiness and how does this happen? And one of the poorest places he went to was one of the happiest. And the reason it was one of the happiest is, first of all, they did a lot of meditation and work on letting go of resentment.
Mm-hmm.
But also their overall philosophy was of gratitude. And that whatever they had was enough.
Sufficiency.
Yeah, that whatever they have is enough. And I certainly have spent time in nature going, nothing is more important than.
Right. I feel you there. Carolyn, thanks for coming and spending time with me.
Oh,
it's always a pleasure. I enjoy it when there's no microphone.
Yeah, me too.
So for us to get a chance to share it with everybody else, I appreciate you for it. So thanks for coming on.
You bet.
All right.
Thanks.
If you like what you've heard, make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For even more inspiration, head over to our YouTube channel, Leave It Better with Brandon Trammell, and subscribe to watch videos from podcast episodes, gain insights around getting right with your money, and achieving contentment in a crazy world. And remember, wherever you go, whoever you're with, whatever you do, always aim to leave it better than you found it.